Not a bad experience. I think
Everybody online, we're waiting for one more person to make a quorum and then we can officially get our meetings.
Not that anyone necessarily wants to hear from me, but I am here. If that helps a quorum. I see you laughing, Luann.
Yeah, we already counted you, Michael, and we still need one more.
Do I count full or just half?
Yeah, we'll decide that later.
All right.
It's not like it.
So why is it for all of these Zoom meetings, when we wait, it seems as if we're in an elevator and everyone's just staring at the numbers and no one's going to say anything back and forth?
We could give you some music if you want.
Yeah,
We could have Dave start singing. You could pretend it's music in the elevator.
yeah, I've been known to sing, so
Yeah,
Breaking the
just
song.
at that point, it's like pressing the button and going to the basement. Super.
Yeah, then you put them on mute. Yeah, exactly.
how do you?
All right. Buckel has arrived in the room, and so we now have a quorum and we can get our meeting started here. Thank you everyone for joining us online. And we will start with attendance. Go online. Mike Guida, start us off, please.
Mike Guida, CORC.
Holly Hahn, Office of the General Counsel.
David Dolan, Facilities Management.
David Porter, CORC.
Barbara Myers, Construction Purchasing.
Bill Hukel, CORC.
Dorothy Banaszewski, Facilities Construction.
John Levinson, Rel Enterprises, representing Ziskovich Architects and Wharton Smith, General Contractor.
Jim Smith, Construction Purchasing Agent.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, Dorothy, you want to handle, how do we do online here? Just everybody says they're here at the same time?
Sam Shannon.
Okay.
Michael Gelfand.
James Ayers, AEP.
Lou Dr. Cook.
Okay.
We've got Tom Berger and we've got Leah Gaines. Just
Okay, good. All right. All right, thank you, everyone. I have nothing to report, so chairman's report's done. Anyone with a conflict of interest for anything being reviewed today? All right, I'm not hearing anything from anyone, so that's clear. CORC report. Lou, can you do it again for us?
Yes, the last report was accepted, acknowledged. There were no questions or issues, and I can do the next one also.
Good, thank you very much. Staff updates.
Okay. First thing is, I hope everybody enjoyed their wonderful national holiday recently called Amazon Today. Oh, no, that was the Nathan's hot dog eating. No, anyway, just a quick update. Yes, we are quite busy in construction. We've got a lot of facility work going on. I'll tell you about in a little while. And we've got a new school opening up and 2 modernizations that are underway. And one of them involves a holding school. We're we're going to be, what's the phrase? Diving in head first into start of school this year. We're coming right down to the wire on them, but we're in good shape. Dorothy, did you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay. I'm making mine really short now because I'm taking the privilege of having the opportunity to have Leanne Evans, our treasurer, give us a little presentation at this time, because I think it's going to be pertinent to some other items we'll eventually talk about during the meeting. So we decided, if it's okay with you, we'd let Leanne do, this is our capital budget kind of refresh, let you know where we stand.
Well, that's still part of staff updates and Leanne's part of staff. Do that now.
Okay, good morning, everybody. How are you?
Okay.
Morning.
Okay, Dorothy, if you could pull up the budget update.
Will do.
It should be on the agenda.
Okay.
You posted
And
it
just for the
in.
group, that this is the
staff
presentation
update.
this is the presentation
update.
that was given to the board on June 1st. So I'm going to update it a little bit as we go through, and we're not going to use the whole presentation. Part of it was the operating budget, and part of it is special revenue and grants. So we're just going to focus on the capital budget piece. And there's also a sales tax update embedded in this, and I thought it would be really helpful for you all to have that information. Mr. Shannon's got his hand raised. Oh, but you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Is there some there? Now all of a sudden something came up on my screen.
There we go.
That's why I was not talking yet, because I couldn't see it either.
Okay.
Although I do have, well, actually, I have it up on another screen.
Okay.
But as I said, this is the presentation we gave to the board on June 1st. So the sales tax continues to come in well in advance of what we projected. The numbers here were through April. So the revenues, I'm going to give you, I'm just going to read through the numbers as of the end of June. The revenues received were 806 million versus the 673 that was projected. So we're continuing to come in faster than projected. As of the end of June, it's 119.88% as opposed to the 118% that we showed in April. We've received 60% of the projected revenues at this point. The expenditures and interest earnings, this information is as of March. I'm going to give it to you as of May. And I know we're in July, but this is the 1 month where it takes us almost 2 months to close. It's the end of the year. And I'm working with the construction department to get all the invoices in for work received completed through June. So we don't have the June 30 data yet, but I do have May, end of May. End of May, we had spent 506 million of sales tax. Now that's construction, deferred maintenance. It's also technology. It's school buses. It's all of it. We spent 506 million. We have 167 million in active purchase orders. Interest earnings thus far is 9,450,000 roughly, and the fees associated with that line of credit, which we just extended, is 370,000. So what I always point out to the Sales Tax Oversight Committee, we have that interest earnings. We take the fees for the line of credit from that, and we still have, a little over we have almost $9 million available that we can use at the end of the sales tax program. So one of the things that we heard from ISOC, and I think I've heard it from CORC, I've heard it from the Finance Committee, we've heard it from the board, is what are we going to do? We keep seeing project budgets and construction costs coming in higher than projected. We're all dealing with inflation in our daily lives. We're dealing with it here at the school district as well. So we did come up with a plan as to how we're going to manage that. And I wanted to walk through this with CORC because I think it does directly pertain to some of the things you're working on. So we've come up with different revenue options, and the sales tax reserves. So we had budgeted $50 million in reserves for the sales tax at the very beginning of the program. We've had a couple of schools that came in under budget. We've had Roosevelt Delray Full Service was supposed to be funded with sales tax. We moved it to tax exempt financing for a couple of reasons, or taxable financing. We're doing that with Roosevelt. So the sales tax reserves right now are at 55 million, and that number is probably going to go up. The interest earnings of 8.4 million. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Sorry, I've got it on two screens. I'm sorry. So I'm just at the beginning. So the sales tax reserves, the 55 million, interest earnings of 8.4 is a little bit higher now than it was when we gave it to the board. And then additional revenue. So what I'm doing is projecting, I'm making assumptions that the sales tax revenues going forward are going to be the exact same thing we've seen over the last 12 months. That's just a very conservative look at it. If that happens, we will end the sales tax early, and we will still have $122 million more than expected. And the reason for that math is in the agreement that we have, the interlocal agreement and all the bond document, the resolutions for the referendum, it said that if we were to receive the amount of money we projected, the $1,345,000 by September 1st, 2025, we would end the sales tax in December at the end of the year. So the tricky thing is that on September 1st, we would have only received money through August. It comes in 2 months delay. So we would really have received the money earned through June. So once we make the decision, and the county, it's very mathematical. There's no assumptions to be made. If we've hit that target, the county will notify the Department of Revenue, and they will end the sales tax program at the end of December. They can't end it in the middle of the year. It has to be at the end of the calendar year. So we would have received money through the end of June. We'll still have 6 months worth of revenue coming in after we've hit that target. So that's why I'm projecting an extra 122 million. That number is actually a little higher now because we're continuing to come in, 19 to 20% above our projections. So that means we're going to have, I think, an extra 185 million, 186 million. That's all subject to change. I mean, if there's a recession, if there's a slowdown in spending, there's a lot of things that could happen between now and 2025. But this is the strategy we have right now. We've also looked at, on the expense side, AECOM came up with a projection on how much they thought we might, for the rest of the program, see additional costs for construction. And their estimate was about $190 million. That's on the facility renewals. We also have some estimates on construction projects coming in higher that would put us, in theory, have a need for an extra 222 million. I've got 185. That's not enough. So what we've done is taken 4 of the facility renewal projects that you recently approved, the ones at Lake Worth High, Olympic Heights, Santa Lucius, and Dwyer, and we're moving them from sales tax into COPS. We're going to be financing those. That wasn't the original plan, but the most important thing we have with the sales tax is to make sure we're finishing all the projects. So we can do that, and that's what we're in the process of doing right now. And then we're also going to take the facility renewal project for Riviera Beach Prep. There's going to be a significant scope change. I think it's going to be discussed later in this presentation. We're going to be building a North Tech facility on the campus at the same time we do all the upgrades and deferred maintenance on River Beach Prep. So it's going to become a very different project, including new construction. So we're moving that to a COPS issue. So that frees up 89 million of sales tax. And that gives us a total possible revenue option of 275 million versus our projection of possible cost overruns of 222 million. So I just wanted to go through this with you all. As you see, budgets come in, I guess the GMPs come in higher than expected. We're going to be using this analysis with all the backup for it to check to make sure that we're in line. We will have some projects come in over budget, some come in under budget. We've said that from the very beginning of the sales tax. We've just added some extra revenue sources in here. And so we're going to be matching that up as we award contracts to see where we're at, constantly updating that. And that update, we're still working on the format, but we'll be taking that into the Sales Tax Oversight Committee at their next meeting, which is scheduled for August 26th or 25th.
And Leanne, this is David. Thank you for that. That clears up my concerns that I've been having when I see the GMPs coming in over. Just make sure that by the time we get to the end, we're still going to be able to do all the projects that the public was promised and the money's covered. My second question is, if the projects don't come in and we don't need all of the money and we have it left over, can you pay off the cops early, and would that be the plan?
We can do that, and we actually did that with the last sales tax. We used excess money to do that, but that's something that we take forward to the ISOC committee and to the school board to make that decision, because the other option is to add things onto the list, do additional work that wasn't on the original list. So that's two options. If you ask me my preference, I'd say paying off debt, but that's my job. And quite frequently, I have an opinion, and the construction department would have another, and it will go up the chain of command, and a recommendation would come to ISOC and to the board. The board is the one that makes the decision. At the end of the day, we do make a recommendation, and we'll bring that up at that time. I mean, we've got several years to go, and honestly, I'm hoping that this estimate for project increases, that 190 million, I'm hoping it's less than that. I really do. But we'll have to see how that goes. So we'll be updating this at least quarterly. Probably, well, I'll be updating it as projects come in. I'll be updating it monthly, but we'll have a report to ISOC quarterly to show where we're at. And if we need to do it more often, we will. Dave and I are working together to come up with a format that would work for him and for us.
As we get GMPs and as they come in over, how will we as a committee know it's okay to approve them because they're covered under your financing plan?
Well, normally, and you're going to see this on agenda items today, there's a couple of them, and actually, can we hold that question until we look at PC 8 and 9? Because I think we're going to look at, Dave's going to bring at least one of them up.
Okay.
We're going to make a change to the format there as well, and there's some nomenclature changes I want to make to clarify things. So we're going to show you what that looks like.
I think what Mr. Porter may be referring to is along the lines of what you just finished talking about, Leanne, is the concept of how we track that, whether it's in a spreadsheet, and there's obviously going to be an anticipated increase in some of these projects. And you're trying to see that float line that says, yep, we haven't exceeded the projected increase over the remaining 5 years of the program. That if we've got an extra $190 million, how close are we at the halfway point to reaching 85, or was it?
And maybe that we bring it forward at every CORC meeting whenever there's a budget overrun.
That's what I would be looking for. And that to me then gives me the reassurance that, okay, we can't stop inflation. They are going to come in higher than we might think, but we got it covered.
Right. We can bring that in with each meeting as we do it right now. If a project is coming in over budget, there's a sentence that's added in the financial impact, and it's added up in the body of the agenda item as well, to say the amount of money that we'd be taking from sales tax reserves. You don't have anything on your agenda today that's coming from sales tax reserve. All the projects that we have there are within the budget that we have allocated.
Asterisk when we talk about it.
And we'll point that out.
Okay.
But from my perspective, all of them are currently within budget. And we need to pull up PC8, at least one of them as an example, to show you the concern, which is valid, and we need to walk through that.
Yeah, I was going to pull PC7, which is the first one that's over the
Whichever
GMP.
one you want to look at is as an example.
We can do that. Okay.
Okay, let me keep going. There's a few more slides here.
Go ahead.
I was just going to give you an update on the capital budget. It wasn't just sales tax. So, and this slide, most of these slides are just FY23, but because we're still working on the full capital plan. But the FY23 budget is basically balanced. Actually, we have a surplus at this point because taxable values, as you probably read in the paper, came in higher than projected. So I've got a meeting with Dave and Joe and Stacy for maintenance with a bunch of us next week to wrap this up. But we're in a position where there's actually a little more money than we projected. So we're going through the rest of the capital plan at the same time. Some of the additions that we're adding into the capital plan is a hard panic solution. That is for all the classrooms. The teachers will all have a badge that has a button on it that will, if it's pressed a certain number of times, it will notify law enforcement in case there is an issue at a school.
Yeah.
North Tech and River Beach Prep, I mentioned that a few minutes ago. We've added that in. So it's not just a facility renewal anymore. It's the addition of a North Tech campus. An addition of South Intensive renovation. That's going to be at the old South Tech site. Modernization of West Transportation. When we did the sales tax referendum, we included all the transportation centers except West, which was in the Glades. So we've added that in, not funded from sales tax, but we need to make sure that one's done as well. Media center upgrades for all the high schools. Acceleration of BEMP, and BEMP is building envelope maintenance program. It's a lot of painting, waterproofing, sealing doors and windows, making sure the exterior of the building is sealed up. We've moved all of those up into most of those up to 22 and 23. We've added digital marquees for the high schools and guard shacks for the high schools. So that's some of the big ticket items that are coming into the capital plan. Most of them are impacting FY23, but some are 24, 25 as well. Can you go to the next slide, Dorothy? Okay, and then this was just a little overview of what each project is. And Dave, I don't know if you want to kind of walk through those and add to what I already covered.
Okay, well, North Tech and River Beach Prep, as Leanne mentioned, is a new project. It's basically the instead of doing a facility renewal at Riviera Beach Prep, which for those of you in the building is literally right across the canal from our building right here. Rather than do the facility renewal, we're recalibrating and looking to basically either completely renovate, like a full new construction renovation, or knock it down and build a new building. We're still working on that planning aspect of it. And there's also an integration. North Tech is the adult ed facility that is also at the back edge of our facility next door. And that is a bunch of garage bays. If you've ever been out there, you've probably seen our Red Apple Supply is there. Well, Red Apple Supply is going to leave, and we're looking to redo the whole campus. It's right when we're doing our North Transportation facility, which is also next door. We wanted to be able to do these as well. And this is more of an academic melding of the Riviera Beach Preparatory facility in with an adult ed, trying to give that symbiosis, that marriage between finishing up high school, having a career path towards adult ed programs, continuing education types of programs. So we're still working with the academic team, so we don't really have a set program right now, but we're just re-engaging with them now to come up with that plan. And it's going to be an exciting project. And we're even looking to the adult ed to be tied potentially with the transportation facility. So if there are diesel mechanic programs that might be able to be linked with the transportation facility that's directly adjacent to it. So Inlet Grove, Leanne, maybe you want to touch on that one because it's more a matter of financing.
Yeah, Inlet Grove, we have a facility renewal in the sales tax, and we need to spend more money there than had been planned. There's just a lot more work. So that's going to, that at this point is staying as sales tax, but we're proposing to increase that budget. Still lots of work to do. They're working with the school to determine the programs and the scope.
Right. And Mr. Sanchez and I are meeting with them relatively regularly to try to piece together that plan. South Intensive Edition. Many of you may recall that South Intensive's kind of been doing a little bit of a hopscotch. They went from that campus by Barton, and we brought them down to South Tech, and we have them in Barton. Did I get the name wrong? But then we brought them down to South Tech, and they've been in those portables there temporarily. And we were planning on building them a new facility, but of course, we have challenges with Department of Education on that. But what we recognize is that the old South Tech buildings, which have not yet been demolished, but are vacant, because South Tech is now over at Odyssey, those buildings with a good renovation can be reincorporated to house South Intensive and give South Intensive a real home. Because the one thing that was, many of you've known South Intensive when it was over at Barton, was in a series of portables, wooden portables. And it was not the greatest of condition, and certainly was not the kind of thing we want for our students there. So this gives us an opportunity to actually renovate the old South Tech buildings. We're only going to renovate one of them. We only need about, I want to say, 25,000 square feet. So one of the buildings we can renovate and house the South Intensive program in there, give them an opportunity to grow and give them a nice, solid, real home, an existing building, good shell, solid building, and update it. New air conditioning, new systems and whatnot. So we're excited about that one. This is a campus that's certainly an organization that needs this upgrade. So we're looking forward to it. Next slide.
Before you go there,
Go ahead.
Inlet Grove, isn't that some type of charter?
It's it's a
Virgin
conversion.
Charter School.
So that means that they have independent governance, but fully school district supported and infrastructure paid for?
Couldn't say it any better. So we owe them a building.
Okay.
We
They're
have to-
they're one of the last surviving charters like that, because I know decades ago when my daughter was at Dreyfus, we tried that at Dreyfus, where that became an independent charter where they could make up their own mind what to do.
As I understand it, I've been told, I don't know this for certain, but I've been told that there are only two remaining in the state.
In the state.
And they're both South Tech and Inlet Grove.
Okay.
So
Continue. Thanks.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the other thing I wanted to mention, we are still working with the city of West Palm Beach on a TDR, transferable development rights. Once that's approved, it would be added into the budget. It's really, we're selling off the development rights to make Dreyfus, to make it taller. I call it the air rights. So the rights to build I think if you can build up to 6 or 8 stories at that point, and we would not ever be adding to the height of those buildings. So we can sell that back to a contractor. In this case, we're selling it back to the city, and they can apply those to other places in the city and build taller buildings. So once that's gone to the board preliminarily, it's due to go back again once it's completed. And based on feedback from the board, 50% of the money would be used for improvements at Dreyfus, and 50% would be used for other historic property improvements, such as the historic building at Northborough and that auditorium building at Jupiter L. We also have a grant that Mr. Dolan worked on. It's a historic grant for Roosevelt Full Service, and the proceeds of that grant, once it's approved, will be used to fund the design of the Roosevelt Full Service renovation. Next slide. Okay, so this is the amount of money that's currently budgeted for construction projects in FY23. Or the projected 446 million, but the list of projects is the entire capital plan. This is something the board always wants to see. They want to know what projects are on the list, and anything in red is something that we wanted to point out. So the new one is the Transportation West over in the right-hand column. We also have the Roosevelt South Intensive renovation is new. The North Tech River Beach Prep is new. And then we continue to keep delayed beside Forest Hill High School and the Forest Hill High School parking lot. Lots of discussion going back and forth with the development of the golf course. I think that's about ironed out. We don't have the final numbers yet and the timing. And now that we've got to some decisions from the city, we have to decide how we're going to manage that. So we're just marking that as delayed because staff is still working on how to manage those projects. And
exactly, staff and leadership, yeah, because the decision, once the city came to their point, we, the district as a whole, need to make a decision on how we're approaching Forest Hill Edition as well. Even working with Chris Garrison on the long-term planning for expansion, the new high school that's coming on, and the boundaries and things like that. So that all plays into it.
There's even space available at Forest Hill to put an addition on?
That's the problem. There's not.
That's a big one. So where?
10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. Yeah. We appreciate that concern. And that's what we're working towards, trying to understand, is it is doing an addition going to burden the property further, traffic, neighborhood, that kind of thing. These are all considerations that have to be laid before the executive committee, and decisions have to be made on that. So that's why we're in agreement that has to be labeled as delayed at this point. We don't know for sure yet. Okay, next.
Okay, this is, I tell the board every time, this is my slide that I can't have a budget workshop for the board without showing this. And it's really interesting as we have the Auditor General here doing our audit, and they actually asked how we show this to the board and to various committees. And I was able to clearly answer. Every time I meet with the board, we show them this slide. What this is doing is the bars, the tan bars are existing debt service. So it's the principal and interest payment on existing debt. The blue section that comes on top of that is the projected cost of the new debt that we're going to be issuing. And then the red line is 50% of the 1.5 mils, the property tax revenue we receive for capital. This is before the numbers came in from the property appraiser's office. So when I rework this line, that red line is just going to jump up a little bit because we did get a 20% increase in taxable values for schools. So it bumped up quite a bit. The green line is 50% of the 2 mills. And for most of you have been on the committee for a long time. And you know, years ago, the state reduced our taxing authority from 2 mills to 1.5. And that was really the reason why we had to do sales tax, because we lost so much revenue. If we were still at 2 mills, that number would be significantly higher. So this just shows that everything that's planned within the capital plan can be done within our existing policy. State law says we should use no more than 75% of the 1.5 mils. Our board policy has a goal of no more than 50%. So that's that red line, and we're right up to it for 23. And then we start seeing room that that red line is going to bump up quite a bit. And when I bring this to you, we're doing another workshop with the board sometime in August. So I'll be updating this, and I'll be happy to bring it back to you and go through it quickly. But I'll show you that red line has shifted quite a bit. So that's just debt service. And then this is just going through the sections of the capital plan. And you've seen this before, so I'm going to go through it really fast. The facility projects, it's facility renewal, which is the sales tax projects. And I mentioned that for those 4 large projects funded in 22 will be shifted to a COPS borrowing, freeing up sales tax dollars for other, I actually put in here, freeing up sales tax dollars needed to complete the remaining projects. We want to make sure that we finish everything on that referendum list. Facilities projects also includes other things like ongoing maintenance and non-construction projects. That's minor projects. It's roofs, it's windows, it's doors. It's the same things being done with sales tax, just not funded with sales tax. The guard shacks are there. The new media centers will be in there. The media center remodels are in there. And site acquisition is also included. But that total is $642 million for FY23. Okay, and the next one, again, just going through the rest of the FY23 budget, we have money for security projects, for school buses and support vehicles, equipment, that's furniture, musical instruments. We've added a line item to update the equipment in the school TV studios that hadn't been looked at in years. That's a new recurring item that we're adding into the capital plan. And technology has gone up quite a bit in the last few years, and it's going to continue staying higher. Because the computer refresh used to be just staff. Now it's a computer or a Chromebook for every student. So not only did we have a big expense when we first did that, we're going to have to replace and repair those and maintain that level of student to computer ratio. So those numbers are higher. The ed technology is a little low this year because their money was used to do all the big flat panel screens that are in the schools. They're all done. So there's money coming in the capital plan further out to replace them when we think they're going to need to be replaced. But they have some small items and some audio enhancement work that they're doing this year.
It sounds like we need a new choice program for computer repair.
Well, we have one for cybersecurity. I don't know if we have one for computer maintenance, but I think they do that in just about every school, quite frankly. But that's a good point.
I mean, that's obviously if we need all these computers repaired and we need our personal computers repaired, I mean, somebody's got to be trained in how to do that stuff and be employable.
Well, Dave, you're on that committee, so you might want to bring that up with them next time you meet. The other item.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to mention we have property and flood insurance, the reserves, and those reserves include the numbers for the sales tax on the sales tax reserve. So it's a big number right now. And the charter schools, that is funded by the state in FY23, but they'll send us the 11.3 million and we'll forward it on to charter schools. I think, that's pretty much it. We're still finishing up the entire capital plan. The things that we continue to worry about and monitor, legislative issues. You just never know what's going to happen in a legislative session. So that always is the top bullet. It could be changes to student station calculations, if DOE has to start approving projects again, funding for charter schools. You just never know what happens during the legislative session. Additional needs and maintenance. It's hard to hire staff right now. It's hard to get construction contracts. I mean, it's a very tight labor market, and it's hard to make sure we're staying on top of everything because of that. So that's something we're continuing to monitor. And rising construction costs. You all are on the front line of that. You know exactly what we're talking about there. And I'll stop at that point. The rest of the meeting was about the operating budget and the special revenues, grants, ESSER. You can certainly look at that. And if you have questions, you can send it to me. I can forward them on. I don't handle those parts of the budget, so I'm not as fluent to be able to answer questions. But if you look at it on your own and have questions, I can certainly forward them to the appropriate person.
And for everybody's reference, what Leanne's referring to is that's presentation that she just did. If you're looking for any of these slides, any information, it is under the staff updates of our CORC meeting for this month, this PDF.
Yeah. It was also, it's on board docs for the board meeting board workshop that happened on June 1st. And we'll be doing a new one in August, and I'll be happy to bring that back at that point.
Michael, you got your hand up.
Thank you, Luann. That's a great presentation, and as always, very impressed with how you and your staff are managing the funds. A number of questions. One is the charter school funds that were required to fund out of the bond. How does that fit into this? Is that already allocated?
It doesn't impact capital at all. Right now, the sharing of the referendum is the operating budget referendum. It doesn't impact sales tax. It will for future sales tax revenue, future sales tax referendums. Those would have to be shared. But the operating, the operating referendum does get shared with charter schools, and that's covered in the earlier slides. And I'm sorry I didn't go over those. I'm not, as I said, I'm not as fluent on that, but that is covered. That's already been embedded in the budget.
With reference to borrowing, by the way, I remember the days when we were coming up against the red line, literally, and it looked so much better. The 4 projects that are going to be shifted to COPS, was that shown in the slide with the bars and lines?
It is. If you go back up to that slide, Dorothy, the one that has the chart, because I'll point something out that will prove that out.
17.
What we're doing,
here we go.
If you look at the blue section, you'll see it's at one level for about 3 or 4 years, then it bumps up for 3 years, and then it shrinks down. So there's a couple of things why those numbers are changing, why it's not level. One is that these projects that are deferred maintenance, we're amortizing them over a 7-year period. I'm not running them out for 20 years. It's not appropriate. Some painting needs to be done constantly. I don't want to borrow and pay for that over 20 years. So it's compressed in the first 5 years or 7 years. You also have a couple of projects, Grove Park and Maluka. When you saw those items come through those contracts, there was some language in the agenda item. They are over student station costs. So in order to exceed student station costs, it needs to be funded with COPS, and then the debt has to be repaid with sales tax. And the sales tax is going to end in 2025. So we plugged that in at the beginning as well. So that portion of the debt for those projects is amortized at the very beginning as well. So these numbers, they're all rolled up into a nice, pretty chart here. but for my sake, they're broken down into a lot of different components to make sure that we're borrowing in the right way. Normally we borrow for construction projects that are going to be here for 50 years and I'm paying for them over 20. I'd like to have the debt paid off halfway through the life of the asset. So if it's a painting job that's going to be redone in 5 years, that should be over like 2.5 years. The roof could last 15 or 20 years. So that we took an average of no more than, I think I have 7 years for that to make sure it's paid off.
It's a good approach to take on those things. With reference to security, I think it was slide 23.
Yep, go forward just a little bit,
It's a
Dorothy.
couple more slides after this.
There it is.
All right, so for the 35, are those projects that are all identified, or is there a bucket for just, who knows?
There's a bucket. A lot of it is planned. The work that Dave and his team do to secure the campuses right now, most of those are planned. I think they're still working for school police and others to identify the work on some of the last schools. And they did those, the schools that needed the most work were done first. So the ones left don't need as much work. So that there is that's in there. And those are at least mostly identified. There's also like the hard panic solution, and we have put some extra money into security this year. We have a new police chief. There's a lot of new requirements coming from the legislature. So we have added some extra money there for, I'll call them surprises. They're not going to be, they're a surprise to me. There's a lot of work happening right now with security. So based on recommendations from the superintendent and the CFO, they've asked for extra money to be there to deal with whatever comes down the pike this year.
How much of that 35 is unidentified, absolute contingency?
Let me pull it up.
Approximately.
I happen to have the capital plan here.
Mhm.
Of course, I would have that up and running when I'm talking about it today. Let me get to that section. The part that's not really identified yet is about 3.7 million.
All right.
Well, it's 3.7 plus another 6.
Another 6
But
million.
in the 6 million is the hard panic solution.
Oh.
And the other things comprised with that. And when we did this, we didn't have the final numbers. So that was an estimate.
So
So
it's really then the 3.7, because the 6 then is identified.
at least part of it is. It came in under budget, and some of that is actually part of it is being funded from the ESSER grant on the special revenue side. So there is some extra money there.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying there is some extra money there. That's something that will be evaluated. That when we put money in a place like that, before it can be used, it has to go through an approval process with a lot of people reviewing it and signing off that this is the right way to spend the money. That money is not available and Dave can talk about when I fund money for his projects, like for minor projects, before they can actually do it, it's got to go through an approval process before it comes to me to be moved from that bucket into actual projects. So we do have a detailed approval process for that.
So that was going to be exactly my next question, is what type of oversight and look-see is occurring on that? I don't know if Dave wants to get into that. I'm not trying to ask about specific plans.
Well, I can talk about these buckets really easily because we did that intentionally. There's a new police chief, and she's looking at things a little differently than we've seen before. And she's being very conservative in what is needed, so that she's now reporting directly to the superintendent. So that they're working on their game plan of what is needed, what is the best way to spend the money. So that's going all the way up to the superintendent, and I don't know, but I expect that's going to the board as well.
So I'll just express my concern, and especially if we have someone from the IG's office on the line, as to oversight of what spending is occurring, and that we have a specific identifiable goal, not just that we are building something or installing a button, but what is the goal of the project and how well does it reach that because of the problems dealing with security?
Yeah, and let me add something too. I understand your question completely, and Dave might want to talk about. There is a process that we have to do, and he's involved with it every year, where the principals provide feedback of what they think they need to keep their school safe. And all the money that we're spending on this work is going towards resolving any outstanding issues that the principals and other staff believe and school police believe they have. So those are identified and reported to the state. Embedded in the security budget is also some grant money that comes from the state of Florida. The grants have to be used for specific things. So typically we're spending the money, say at sales tax, we're paying for it at sales tax, and then we're moving the appropriate expenditures into the grants, the things that apply. It's card access readers, it's locks, it's window coverings, covering around fences to screen the view. There's a lot of work like that that's being applied to those grants as well.
One of my concerns is that not only do we have security funds being spent on something that has flash bang but doesn't get to what is necessary, but also under the guise of security, projects are being approved that really should be funded elsewhere. You know, if we need a fence for just general reasons, now it becomes a security issue. And, you know, we've seen what I would consider to be a considerable problem in the recent past that just sort of popped up. But that's one of the issues there. I've got a couple of others, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your patience, but I want to just touch first, as you mentioned, the City of West Palm Beach and working with them on the development funds, which is a great idea. We have a couple of projects. One is Northborough, where we've got that. I think the building is still there.
Yep.
There, and the potential of, as we're negotiating with them, negotiating that building out of the way. And second, with Forest Hill, as the city is trying to address the golf course, if there could be some type of work with the city in terms of our space needs. You know, they've raised the whatever they call the clubhouse there, and that's, I don't know about the street, but just is there thought of negotiating with them on those two projects?
Well, with regards to Forest Hill, there's been extensive negotiations with city leadership and school district leadership. And that's where we're at now. That's where, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but we're not going to get any more land than that which we've already negotiated with them very recently. So we are getting a little bit of additional land, which will help us with a little bit of parking. But there have been extensive negotiations already, and the results are what they are. That we are not getting a considerable amount of land from that golf course in order to be able to do any sort of addition or parking addition or anything like that.
All righty, thank you. Getting back to security for a moment, is anyone watching the grand jury efforts, the statewide grand jury?
Yes.
All righty. I will so is there, from the Department of Education or otherwise from the state of Florida, let me back up for a moment. I have an assumption that the security issues that our county faces are in many ways no different than most of the other districts in the state of Florida, in light of we have very similar construction of schools and population around. Is that an appropriate assumption?
I think we have spent a lot of money on security in the last few years. And I know the first schools that were touched, and Dave knows this much better than I, but the first schools that were touched were the ones that had the big open campuses. Mm-hmm. And so those were the ones where they did single point of entry projects and put in different types of structures. Sometimes it was adding a modular, sometimes it was reworking part of the front office to add extra security measures. So I think the fact that we had the sales tax in place and was already working on that gave us a head start.
Because we've been working on it from gosh, what's the name of the other grant that we had before? Sandy Hook. The Sandy Hook grant had us moving in that direction even before the sales tax referendum had been. So,
But the perceived danger for the school for which we're providing security, we share the same type of issues that other school districts throughout the state does, correct? So my question is what assistance is the state providing in terms of clearly identifying what the dangers are, and what assistance is the state providing school districts as to what should be done to address those?
let me address both of them together. The first one is, this is not our purview. This is actually a relationship between the state and the school safety officer, which is someone in school police. So we, in the construction side, really don't have any answers as to what they're recommending for us. I know that school police does work with the state, and I'm sure they get recommendations on improvements and such, but that's really not our area of purview. So I can't speak to that. But then as far as what they are doing for us, it does go along the, I'll refer to it, and I apologize, but we love acronyms, right? FSAT, Florida Safety and Security Assessment Tool. That is the tool that all principals are required to work on with our school police and myself and others to help assess their campuses every year as to I'll say the high topics of security, whether it be gates and fences, card readers, cameras, those types of things. There is it's an actual assessment tool, and the school works with school police to fill those out each and every year. And that helps because, in fact, the result of the FSAT study, or that assessment tool, is a grant. Each year, Leanne, I don't remember exactly how much we get, but each year the state does contribute additional money towards those bare, let's call them bare basic improvements, right? Whether they're card readers, cameras, gates, fences, that kind of stuff.
All right, I was going to give you a total. I've got it right here. Security grants. The first year we received 6.7 million. The next year was 3.4, 2.8 the year after that, and we're getting 2.8 in 22, and probably the same amount in 23.
So my concern is, and I'm hearing some positive items, but especially as we have grand juries out there in essence looking for scapegoats and looking backwards in time. I have not seen an effort from the Department of Education or elsewhere from the state that clearly assists the school districts in identifying problems and also looking far ahead at the unanticipated issues. I mean, I actually am from the Highland Park area, and you know, that just came out of nowhere on it. But there's an expectation with the public, and I think our parents, that our schools are invincible when they are far from that. And to the extent that there's going to be these expectations, what is it that the state is doing? Because we are not alone, and we want to have some economies of scale as we move forward on this. And I don't want to have a situation where we have this statewide grand jury report that's going to be coming out in a little bit. We've already seen how the state has come off against the Broward County folks on a personal basis, but there really wasn't. And the problem with it is that there wasn't a follow-up with the recommendations specifically of what should be done looking forward. And also, you know, I think we need to be careful about our expectations again with the parents, that we.
Michael, I want to move this on because I I guess I don't see how this connects to CORC. It's a security discussion that really isn't on a project that we're here to approve.
It may not be on a project, but it deals with the construction and how we plan and build and maintain schools. And one of the problems is that I don't see anyone who's have effective oversight on, or any body that has effective oversight. I know it's behind the curtain, but I hear that, the new police chief is going to be working with superintendent, but that also gives me some problems. And also I want to pin this on the state to get them to be doing more than looking backwards and doing the blame game. But I'll hold the rest of my questions for another time.
That brought up a question I had. I think a couple of meetings ago, we had asked for, I think Joe was going to do it, to ask the board what kind of input that the board wanted from CORC on security. Whether we were just supposed to just kind of not deal with security, deal with the expenses of security, because it had come up on a couple of projects where there was a change order or something because extra things had to be added after the fact. And I don't think we got the answer back as to what the board's direction was intended for CORC.
Okay. I don't believe, I'm not sure if Mr. Sanchez is available because my apologies that at this very moment, we have the audit committee going on at the same time.
Oh, he's here.
I'm not sure if he's actually available, but I don't want to put him on the spot, and I'd actually want to make sure that he had an opportunity to work through executive cabinet and the superintendent and have him take that
That's
path.
fine.
But yes, if it's all right, we'll actually have it as a follow-up with Mr.
That's
Sanchez
fine.
to give us a report as to follow through, whether
I
it's a
just
board
wanted-
directive or a superintendent
Yeah.
directive.
And by next meeting, I just want to know, whether we should just forget talking about security, even though we care about it, or whether we're supposed to have some involvement. Tom Berger, got your hand up.
Okay, Joe did step out of the, I think he's going back.
Yeah, I have to leave for a few and I will be back.
Hamburgers got to step out.
Okay, we got a quorum still.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Sanchez is on the screen now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that we have another closed door security session with the board on August the 3rd. And the first one we had, I didn't have an opportunity to ask that question because we ran out of time. So I'll get with them. Hopefully I'll have a chance to do that on August the 3rd.
Maybe by our August CORC meeting, we'll have an answer as to what we're supposed to do or not do with security related issues.
That'll be my goal.
Okay. Leah?
Yes, Leanne, I was just curious as to how and where we budget for the like training equipment needs. For example, I looked at the construction project list for, say, Delray full service model. I don't know if those programs have been determined yet. The Roosevelt, and also the new approach for with the North Tech School. Have we budgeted for those equipment needs for those regarding training for those schools?
Typically, the construction budget includes money for furniture. If it's instructional items, actually curriculum and things like that, it can't be funded from the capital budget. It's illegal. It's got to be funded from the operating budget. So I would not see those. But the furniture budget, I've seen it for Del Rey. I have not seen it for Roosevelt or North Tech yet.
Right. But if it's equipment for training, not just, like machines or equipment or special tools for a tech training or a career path, would that be in that equipment budget?
I'll see a line item for furniture that includes furniture, desks, chairs, computers, all types of equipment. It's not broken down to exactly what they're buying. So I don't have that level of detail. I just have a total.
Yes, Ms. Gaines, it does in fact anticipate specialty equipment for a program.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Delray Full Service, for example, is going to have a construction academy or a multi-purpose trades academy space in there, and it does account for in our FF&E fixtures,
Okay.
furniture and equipment, that budget, would account for certain specialty equipment that they're going to need to learn on, to train on, to improve their skills.
So if
Thank
we're
you.
setting up an auto shop program, it would cover the lifts and the computer technological equipment and
That's correct.
wrenches and
Yeah.
things like that. Okay. Good.
All right.
Leanne, one question I had for you, you mentioned if we needed a new referendum, the state law now says we have to give a certain amount of that money to charter schools. Is it based on a percentage of referendum amount, or is it based on charter schools validating the need like we have to do for projects?
It's a per student basis.
So they're just handed a check based on their size.
Yes, well, they would have to with the sales tax. They would have to. We have to have a project list that says how money would be spent. So part of what we would need to do is, and that will be a complicating factor. We'll need to understand what they're planning to spend the money on, so that we can include it in that project list. For the
That's what I
operating
meant.
budget, they were given access. We have to share that money on a per student basis. The project list already existed. It has to be used for teacher salaries, for music, art, PE, security. There's very specific things it has to be used for, and they have to report back. And that information goes to the Independent Referendum Oversight Committee, or IROC, that meets just before ISOC usually.
So for construction, if we had another referendum and a charter school submits, they need $10 million for an addition, do they then have to validate that they really only needed 8 million and it came in 2 million under budget and give the 2 million back?
I honestly don't know how we would manage that. It hasn't happened throughout the state yet. I think the only, I believe Broward is sharing part of their general obligation bond referendum with charters, but it was a limited amount for computers. So I don't think it's been done yet throughout the state. I don't think there's been a new sales tax in a county that has charter schools. So at that point, we would have to dig into that and understand what the numbers are. Also, any new referendum will have to go through an APAGA audit. We have to notify APAGA. They have to hire a CPA firm to do a performance audit to verify the need before we can go to referendum for sales tax again. So that would also be embedded in that analysis.
Okay, any other questions for Leanne and capital and expenditure?
I have a question.
Bill.
15 or 20 years ago, we had extensive discussions about a pile of rocks on Northborough Elementary campus. And it has come up repeatedly over this period of time. And I see it shows up indirectly on this schedule. What happens to that pile of rocks this time around? Or are you familiar? I know David remembers those questions.
Yes,
I know what you're talking about. We actually have a line item in the budget right now. Well, it's not, there's no money. It's coming. If you go up to that TDR spreadsheet, the earlier, I think the second or third slide, that the money that's coming from City of West Palm Beach right there, 50% is for Dreyfus, 50% is for other historic property improvements, such as Northborough Elementary and Jupiter. So
and what we really want to know right now, Leanne, and that's, I think, where we're heading is, Mr. Sanchez and I are both in discussions trying to get our team together to figure out, hey, if we get money for Northborough, what do we do with it? What are we going to do with that shell? What are we going to turn it into? What's the functional use of the building? Is there a benefit? Is there a need for the community? Is there a need for the school?
But that's just what it was 20 years ago and nothing has happened. And the problem that I recall that seemed to be the biggest one is the City of West Palm Beach had declared it a historic site, which caused us not to do anything. And then we couldn't figure out what to do. And I still don't know what this says they're going to do. Or does it say you're going to look at it again?
I think it says we're going to look
at it again. Yeah, we have intent to do something about it. In our discussions with the city, negotiations and discussions, this has certainly become something that the school district is engaging in developing something at Northborough. What it is, still got to be done.
Right.
We still have to figure out what that functional use is, and then we can move forward with it.
And one of the first line on that slide is once it's approved, it'll be added to the capital budget. So we don't have that money yet. We don't know how it's going to be spent yet. This is the recommended use of the funds, but those projects are not on the capital plan at this point because we don't know what it is. It's just these are potential changes that are coming, but we don't have details on them yet.
It's the same thing with the Jupiter Auditorium. Well,
Right.
we know it's an auditorium, but for what purpose? What's the intent? How are we going to use it? Is it going to be community use versus for school use, that kind of thing, or regional school use? All those questions still have to come up when and if this gets passed. I'm sorry, I can't read that.
Hold on.
Yeah, Mr. Sanchez added a note. He
Yes, Mr.
said,
Sanchez.
As I recall, it was a condition of approval for street abandonment we needed from West Palm Beach.
Well, and it was also a condition of approval to approving the Northborough tear down rebuild because they said that old building had to stay because it was historical and right out in front of the property. And so that's why it couldn't be torn down on purpose.
Correct.
It's such a structural nightmare. We all thought that, good hurricane, it would be a pile of rocks. So it just got secured so that there'd be a fence around it. Nobody'd go into the thing. Nobody would go out of it. And just it's wait and see.
I think the street abandonment was for Pleasant City. And Dave, you're right on that.
Yeah, it was the condition of approval for the Northborough School because it was either a full tear down or such a major change to whatever was there that was the little dangling carrot that the city was going to approve that. All right, I want to move our meeting along. Virginia had a question? No?
Yes, it says here that these are recommended use of funds. Does that mean that they could be used for something else?
the board hasn't approved this yet. This is the latest discussion of what we've heard from the board. So this is the current thought process, but the board has not even, the TDR sale has not even happened yet. So this is something still under negotiation, still underway. We wanted to put this in the slide for the board so they knew we were aware of it. And this is what we've heard from the board members that they want. So we've loaded that in, but it's still underway. It's not, none of this is in the capital plan yet, but these are possible changes that could come, and that would be based on the board recommendations.
Thank you.
I like the idea that if we're getting funds on one of our historic buildings, that we put it back into history again. Some on Dreyfus because that's what's earning the money, and some on, other historic properties we have. So I like that concept. Okay, we're going to move along here. Thank you, Leanne, for all of that. Let's go down to consent agenda. All right, here we go. FC1.
Pull, please.
Okay. FC2. FC3. PC1.
Pull, please. Gelfand.
PC2. PC3. PC4. PC5. PC6. PC7. I wanted that pulled.
I did too.
Okay.
Gelfand.
Okay. PC8.
Gelfand.
PC9.
Gelfand.
All right, Virginia. Need your motion, Virginia.
I move the remaining items on the consent agenda to go forward without objection.
Second.
Second by Sam. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Okay, Bill Hukill,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon. Frank? Okay, we'll come back to Frank. Ken Lassiter,
Yep.
Yes.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Yes.
Louis Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Tom Berger, he's stepped out, Virginia,
Yes.
And let's go back to, Frank.
Yeah, he said, Frank said yes.
Frank said yes? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Michael, FC1.
Thank you for the staff memos on the issues that have been raised before. A couple of follow-ups dealing with 8 Murakami and the bathrooms. How was it that, I understand what occurred, but why were the 2 restrooms removed if they were necessary?
What's the backstory to this one?
Yeah, I was gonna say, go ahead.
We have a design team that during the initial development of the project scope, thought that it would be a good idea to take the 2 staff restrooms and make one large handicapped accessible restroom. That was approved by building department. It was approved through permit drawings. The GMP went out and was approved. Contractor bid it as was shown on the drawings. And then the school looked at it, at the plan and what was going to be happening and said, we can't possibly get by with just one restroom in that administration area. We need 2 restrooms. So in order to make it 2 handicapped accessible restrooms, they had to expand into the adjacent storage room. So
When you say design team, you meant that architect or architect and staff?
architect and staff.
Okay.
I believe it was staff that directed the architect to make it into one restroom.
And in the chain of command, is that something that staff is allowed to make kind of a scope change like that without going higher up the food chain?
Yeah, I mean, there are adjustments to scopes that that we expect them to take a leadership role on and determine the best interest. Now, of course, I can look back with 2020 and say, what were you thinking? Now, there's no question about it. Didn't you go to the principal ahead of time and say, can you go with just one restroom? That would have been a smart question, and of course it wasn't. But
well, in terms of lessons learned, I mean, is that something that when staff says, I think this might be a good change, that there is a process that you get to okay it, and then they got to get it by the person that's actually going to have to use it?
Well, and on something like that, I would say, yeah, that's not something that I would necessarily need to. Okay, that's really a functional use of the building, and I'm not going to know whether or not that's a worthy use.
Because you're not living there. The
I'm not,
principal is.
yeah. But we also recognize, as you CORC have told us, even those principals are renting the space, right? We always often say they're tenants, they're not owners of the building. So we recognize that the principals are the best ones to tell us whether or not that will work, and we do the best we can working with the staff in front of us. Now, like I said, I think on this one, our shortfall was simply that whether we showed it to the principal or whether, and you all probably know this, there are a lot of times we present a set of plans to a principal and try to walk them through. And exactly, with your clients, you have to walk them through every little detail that get them to understand how that's going to impact them. It's not what it looks like, because they can't envision what it looks like on plan. You need to walk them through how it feels, how it's going to impact their day-to-day lives. This seems to have been something that we probably missed, but that's something we learned from.
Yeah.
Yeah, just suggest moving forward that for most schools of size that they're going to need to have 2 staff restrooms, but it's a lesson learned on that. Next item.
By the way, just real quick, Dorothy takes these items that we talk about. We have actually every month in preparation for CORC, she has a meeting with all the SPAs, and we go through each and every one of these items. I think we've told you about that before. And this is the kind of learned lesson. They learn it the hard way. The guy that's sitting there in the hot seat, everybody else is staring at him in the room and recognizing, oh, I don't want that to be me the next time. So there is an immediate learned lesson from these things.
Item number 9, this may relate to PC 7 and 8. I don't know about where we're breaking up these projects into new phases. how much are we actually going to be saving if we're going to be, having to prepare new plans on this? Isn't it better just to bite the bullet and get it done?
Well, we're talking about the North County,
Yeah, right.
this space right here.
Right.
It's, I'll say that this was postponed, but the reality is it's pretty much terminated, that phase of the improvements. We had, under the previous administration, there's an expectation that we were going to expand this particular room and make it twice as big, have a lot more flexibility, multiple rooms, multiple opportunities for meetings. That's been nixed, and there's a rationale behind it. And I think you all can appreciate that. One of the major reasons why we're not going forward with this, and we will not be going forward with it in the future, is that if you've been out to see our parking lot these days, it's kind of packed. So all I'd be doing is creating another conference room where I'd have another 15 or 20 people that would be showing up here with no place to park. So that in itself made it an untenable situation that really we don't anticipate having to go forward with that. So that's why we're not going to be implementing it in the future.
So that's why the extra charge, because you're basically deleting off the drawings whatever was meant for this room, but other projects in the building still needed to proceed.
Yeah, and they're underway right now.
Okay.
Moving on to page 9, skipping a lot of these, the Jupiter Police substation item. Is that something we're going to be dealing with otherwise, and I should wait on this, Mr. Chair, or address it now?
Yes.
I'm going to do a quick little update on where it stands. I'll show a few pictures of where we're at. And basically what I'll tell you is these are the last two items for it, the last two change orders. Whether it's,
I'll defer my comments then until, Dave, you do your presentation on this. Okay.
and I'm not going to get in great detail about the use. I'm just going to tell you kind of where we are on the project and how complete we are and when it's going to open and that kind of thing.
So my question is that, we have seen these items that have come back for security features. What's being done so that we don't have these things continually popping up? I do have a concern that someone's not reviewing the plans when they should be.
Well, this one's kind of obviously a little interesting situation. We were working with school police on the design for this, but not the guy that actually does the assessments on security. The guy who will operate the building and know who sits at what desk and how that space would operate. There was a presumption on our side that school police as a whole, were communicating within their own ranks to make sure that we had those measures accounted for. We'll take the hit for that, and our designers didn't include some of those in features, but it's the rare exception. Normally, when we're building something for a school, we have somebody from school police who's involved. We've already gone through this a number of times with you guys to make it clear that school police needs to weigh in before we get to the finish line. And then this one, it's a snafu in that we presume that school police was talking to their own during the design, and that was a mistake. So like I said, we're taking the hit on this one from our side, the designer and ultimately staff. We're not making sure of that, but this is the exception.
So school police now has someone at the table who actually, in essence, has authority and knowledge.
Yes.
Marty. With reference to the second item, is that some type of a plenum return system with the ceiling, or is it just a drop ceiling?
It sounded to me, Michael, like it was two different ceiling levels and there was no transition talked about. How do you get the vertical done? And so you got to drop a bulkhead wall down so that you've got ceiling tile over to the lower level and ceiling tile up to the upper level.
That's correct.
That's correct.
All righty. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay. If nothing else on FC1, then I need a motion to move forward.
Move forward without objection.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Second by Sam. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Bill Hookil,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yes, I.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
and Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, Michael, PC1.
So someone had beat me to the punch and raised the question regarding Florida Lemark on this. And it does have a substantial amount of litigation that is there. Has there been follow-up with any of the other parties to confirm that the work was properly done and justified just on a sampling basis, or how did we determine that these were all proper and good faith?
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, somebody.
Yeah. Michael, thanks for the question. When reviewing, we review it pursuant to the policy. So 7.08, I'm sorry, outlines really the responsibility of myself as legal counsel, as well as construction purchasing. And then really the decision on if they need clarification comes to the fact-finding committee, the pre-qualification committee. I'm not aware that in this particular instance that the committee asked for additional information from the vendor.
And I'd just like to add to that, Michael, this is Barbara Myers, Construction Purchasing. During our fact-finding committee meetings for these applications, just generally speaking, they will, if there is something that they would like clarification on, we do pull applications and get clarification on specific instances. Maybe, they're not happy with the experience listing that was there, or they want more experience, more relatable experience. We do pull applications. This one I can say was not pulled. The committee did not have any, it didn't raise any red flags. The litigation that was listed on there was not related to any public agencies. It was, I think there were 10 or 11 cases it's litigation for condominium type of construction and residential. And it's typical for us to see more litigation on those types of projects when we're reviewing these applications. So I think that's why it didn't really raise any red flags for the committee.
I mean, these aren't all out of the ordinary, and there were a number of public and non-condominium items. The one that jumped at me was the Buckley Towers, where they sued for fraud in the inducement on the claim, which is a warning flag to me. And I'd suggest if we see those in the future on items, that those be taken a look at to see if folks are over litigating. But all right, I appreciate the explanation. Mr. Chair, no other questions.
You want to make a motion?
Sure, no objection to the board considering.
Second?
I'll second it.
Michael Guida seconded. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Bill Hookil,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
Frank, Ken Lassiter,
Aye.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, PC7, Virginia, Michael, and I pulled it. Virginia, go ahead.
Well, the explanation that was given on the backup information, someone did pull it to question it, and the comments came back. And my concern was that on all three of these, that somehow that explanation be also given to the board.
Okay. Yeah, I pulled it because, again, we're shown the construction budget, and that if it's over the construction budget, that is something I just want the board to be aware of. I still question, I guess, and that's I have to respond to, how the budget was, the quote unquote budget was determined. I mean, we're looking at something that was not bid, 6, 7 years ago when we started all of these. It was much more of a broad-based brush to come up with a number for the referendum of what we were going to need. So I don't expect the actual GMPs to almost ever hit what we call as a budget.
Okay.
And that's why I was glad to see Leanne's presentation, because my concern is, yes, we've got construction inflation, and if we're over on a budget or an estimate or whatever we want to call these numbers, it's a holding spot. And I just want to make sure we're going to have enough money by the time we get to the finish line to finish off all the projects the public was promised. And Leanne has done that math and presented it to the point that I'm comfortable with that.
And we, go ahead, Leanne. I know, I think you and I are going to say the same thing, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to point out when these agenda items come up, and I get to see them all, I get to see them too. The total project budget, that $5,756,000, that's a number that is a budget. It's in the capital plan. It's in the financial system. We track it. This RFP budget for construction, that's not something it's not really a budget. It's an estimate. And I've asked Dave, and I'll be asking Barbara in purchasing to change that term, because it's not a budget. It's not tracked in the financial system. It's not in the capital plan. When I look at this, I'm looking at that total $4.2 million and whatever else is included in the project budget, which could be FF&E, it could be architect, it could be everything else. As long as it fits within that total project budget, then it's within the budget. This RFP for construction, that RFP budget, that's used to give it to purchasing so they have an idea how to bid it. Can it be done under the $2 million under contract, the $4 million under contract? Do they need to do an RFP? Does it need to be an ITN? It's a tool for purchasing. So I've asked, I think everybody gets focused on the word budget there, and it's not really a budget. It's an estimate, and I don't mean to make light of that at all. But when we review the agenda items, and you don't have any on your agenda today, if I see when this gets awarded, Dave's team has to send me a project budget spreadsheet that breaks down where the money needs to be, how it needs to be distributed within the project. And I think we've shown you one of those once before. It's a long sheet of paper that's got about 40 different places and codes that we use, because we break the money up. How much is furniture? How much is EMS controls? How much is overhead? We break it all out. And if it all fits within the budget, then we have enough money to do it. And frequently, when they set these budgets up, they honestly lowball this number for purchasing, because they're hoping the contractors would come in low. And when they build the budget, it's got a big number for project contingency. So as these contracts come in, they realign the budgets. And we don't even load it in PeopleSoft until I get the detail of where it's going to be.
So if you're a contractor on this call, don't listen to anything she just said, because we don't lowball. That's the price.
Yeah, we want the contractor to come in at that price. That is the estimate they came up with when they put it out for bid. The total project budget is another number. So I've asked for them to rename this as an RFP estimate for construction, because budget for us, budget has a different connotation than an estimate does. So
and the line items within a budget, and I know I'm sorry, I always beat this drum. I've gone through this presentation with you guys a number of times before. But what I always say, a budget is a living, breathing thing. The percentage of the overall budget, that which the GMP is, shifts over the course of the design. And how does it shift? Well, contingency, which starts really big, gets a little bit smaller as we get further along in the design and fine tune how much everything is. That's why you guys have always asked us, is the GMP within a percentage, a certain reasonable percentage? And that's really what we do when we come up with that initial estimate for purchasing department. We basically come up with an estimate percentage of the overall budget for the cost of construction. So we have an idea what range contractors should know that they're bidding on. We don't want them to bid on a $4 million job and then come to find out that it's really an $8 million GMP. Some contractors won't be able to do that $8 million. So it's very clear that we're as upfront as we can. But all of this is an adjustment. That's why they're estimates, and estimates change over the course of the design.
And Dave, we may want to add, just to make it more clear, we've got, instead of calling it total project budget, maybe we call it original project budget, have a revised project budget that's probably, that in this case would be exactly the same, and then a line item, additional funds required to complete the project. If additional funds are needed, I make sure that number is in there because that's my authority to increase the project budget. So there's usually a line item in the body, and then down in the section a little bit lower that says financial impact. We'll spell out very clearly if additional money is needed and where it's coming from. So in this case, no additional money is needed to award this contract. It's all within the total project budget. But I think we need to work on updating the wording to make this more clear, because I can tell there's a lot of questions by the members of CORC. And if you all have questions, the board could have questions as well. So I think we need to work on what the language here is.
Yep. And with your feedback, we'll work with Barbara. And I know we touched on it initially before this meeting because we knew that you had an issue with it. And we're basically doing that. Yeah, well, this is how it is. But we did have a chance to discuss it further, and we will be making adjustments, and we'll get more additional feedback from you guys.
Michael, you had pulled this too.
Yeah, Leon, I appreciate that, and I think you're right that the nomenclature is difficult because the term budget, while it is by definition merely an estimate, in our discussions, it gives a connotation of something that's been approved and there's an expectation that it's going to be met. So, just using an explicit word estimate may be better. My concern is, taking into account the jump of construction costs, we're still dealing with a doubling in the project price from the estimate. Has there been some substantial changes in the scope, or what beyond just construction cost increase went into this one?
Well, Michael, again, that goes back to how is that estimate identified? I mean, is it just a number that's grabbed out of the air just to give a scope size to the project, or was that based on some dollar per square foot based on other empirical data? So I'm kind of discounting that and going on what Leanne says, that as long as she knows that we're under the total project budget that the capital plan has allocated for construction, furniture, design fees, all of that stuff, I'm okay with that because we are seeing gigantic inflation. And so some of it's probably inflation and some of it's actually bidding out from real drawings where we didn't have that for any estimate before.
So I understand that, take that into account, but I still get back to, has there been a change in scope of any substantial goal as part of this project? I mean, are we, for example, I know the numbers don't justify it, but are we adding a new building or is there something else beyond that?
No. There are no changes in scope. There may have been little tweaks. As a matter of fact, this is a core expansion project. We've only done one core expansion project recently to learn from. Like we'd done Citrus Cove core expansion about a year ago and just finished it up. So there may be some learned lessons from that one that contributed minor tweaks or adjustments. But no, in fact, the scope of the project remains exactly as it was 2 years ago and prior.
Michael, the other thing I think that we're seeing now, and the reason we're called these things overestimate, is for the last couple of years, when things were coming in overpriced, we were pulling scope from the projects that cool, safe, dry, and bright. So we were seeing costs coming in to meet the quote unquote budget. But it really wasn't, because then we had deferred work that we had to pick up. What Joe has said, and I completely agree with, is that no, we're already there. If we need to pull some more money at this point to get all this stuff done at one shot, to validate to the public that we're giving them what we told them we would give them, yeah, some of these jobs are going to come in over that estimate that was done 6 years ago.
Agree with that process. I mean, once we mobilize, we should get things done. You know, and not just to skip ahead, but when I see one that doubles like PC9, that's more than doubled.
But double based on what? Based on an
just
estimate that got grabbed out of the sky. So the estimate was wrong, not the bid.
and just want to make, what I'm asking to confirm is that we are not changing the, we're not substantially changing the scope of the project.
There's no change in scope. It's just do the work, get the repairs done.
Right, especially on 8 and 9. I know we're really talking about PC7 right now, but assuming that 8 and 9 are on the similar mindset, those are facility renewals. And to your point, those scopes have not changed. Has the volume of work within a particular task expanded? Perhaps. Maybe there was only $100,000 for classroom lighting in the original assessment that was, I'm using a generic example.
Right.
Maybe there's only $100,000 in lighting in the original assessment. But when we got to the school and we started really looking through all the classroom lighting and realizing, oh, good heavens, $100,000 isn't going to do it. We need $400,000. So that might be the case, that we only had $100,000, but we're now doing $400,000 worth of improvements, meaning double the quantity, let's say, of that scope. Does that help? Does that help clarify? Like when we say on the facility renewals, we are not doing any new changes, but we may be increasing the quantity. If we were doing 5 air handlers and we get to the site and realize, oh no, we need to replace 2 more. Yeah, we're increasing the cost by 2 air handlers, but not really changing the scope.
I'd like to just support, David, your comment. You are going to see a change because there's such a long time frame between when these were originally bid. I mean, this one in particular on PC9 was advertised for bid, I believe, in January or February of 2021. So you're just seeing the GMP now when we're having a different kind of mindset of or goal of what we want to provide public with.
Sure. Well, we're also seeing a year's worth of construction inflation.
Right.
Too.
So you're getting hit twice.
Yep. Anything else, Michael?
No, thank you.
Okay. Need a motion to move forward with PC7?
So moved.
Thank you, Leah. Need a second?
Second.
Second by Sam. Dorothy?
Bill Hukill,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter. Ken?
Aye.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor. Lou?
I think he stepped away from his screen.
Yeah, he's not at his screen.
Okay, Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
and Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay. Michael, PC8 and 9, did you have the same questions as 7?
Same items, and, you know, with the understanding that this is not a just substantial change in scope, want to make a motion for both, that we move forward without objection, so we have one roll call.
Okay, that's a motion by Michael. Do I have a second on PC8 and 9?
Second.
All right, by Sam. All right. Any discussion? Okay,
Yes.
Dorothy.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was one, I'm trying to find my notes, that phase two, I think it's 8, it might be the same as 9, the future funding will be needed. And I'm wondering again if the board should be notified of that on their documents. It's in the comments that you gave back to us, but shouldn't the board know that additional funding would be needed?
Yes, yes, ma'am, you're correct. If you all can see the screen, you'll see that grin that Leanne has on her face. It's the "I told you so" look. That she
Sorry, I
often
just couldn't stop it.
But the reality was, my presumption when I put this together is when you put a phase one, of course, there's going to be a phase two, because otherwise I wouldn't call it phase one. I would just call it the project, would be a GMP. Leanne's reaction to me was, well, I didn't assume that, nor would a board member, and nor would you as CORC members. So I have learned my lesson. Yes, I have. Never.
Thank you for asking that question, Virginia, that it was not just me.
I want to make sure there wasn't a setup in here that's,
No,
yes.
I haven't talked to her.
I do appreciate that. And if there is a way that in our staff report, or in the report that Mr. Doctor will take to the board, we could put in that notification of not that it goes without saying, but that it is understood that there will be a future phase 2 GMP with additional funding needed.
Yeah, that last paragraph that's on the screen right now where it says a total contract award, it further in that paragraph, all scope items from the referendum list to be accomplished within this GMP except, and it lists some things that are not included. Those are the things that will be included in phase 2. And they will be coming back and asking for more money. This will be over budget. It's not yet, but it will be. So I'm right there with all of you, looking for those amounts because it's not known yet, but it will come in. And these two, your PC 8 and 9, will need more money.
Wouldn't that be the proper place then in this going to the board to put these items will come up and under phase 2 and will require more funds, just adding that sentence?
Yeah.
They would. And as the board item is already posted, for me to modify the item would have to put it down on new business, have to be considered by the board individually.
I understand that. I'm just talking about the future.
Oh, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Future, I've learned my lesson. There will be a note that does identify that this will be, there will be a phase 2 with additional costs needed and brought forth in the future, something along those lines. That language will be included in GMPs when it occurs like this, where we do a phase 1, phase 2.
Thank you.
I guess this gets back to my point that I was making before, to make sure we're still at the finish line going to have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
Because, maybe this comes in double. I don't know what the number is going to be. I'm not even asking for you to give me an estimate, but that's where I'd want Leanne to still know that she's got enough in the kitty to handle taking us all the way to the finish line.
Yes, sir.
Or does it mean that even at this point, we have to do a scope reduction?
Right.
We can't know that by the time we get to the finish line, because that would mean we just kind of hack out 1 or 2 schools that don't get anything done.
Well, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're bringing this back to the board in the next month or 2 with your phase 2, correct?
Yeah, I think one was coming back in September and one's coming back in October.
So right now, when I look at this, that total budget, the total award is $12 million and the total project budget is 16.8.
Right.
But they've told me that the additional cost for phase 2 will take it over budget. So
Yeah.
As soon as they have that information, they're going to get it to us and we'll make sure it's clearly identified. If you want to, and I'm not, don't do this now, but on your own, if you want to go back to May, to your May board docs item, and there was an award, I just pulled up, it's PC 3. It was for Grove Park. And at the bottom, it says an increase of X amount is needed to complete the project. The source of funds is the planned borrowing, which the board would consider in June. If they're getting extra money, it's very, very clear in that financial impact statement, because otherwise I don't have the authority to change the budget. So if it's asking for more money, you will always see that in the financial impact statement. Otherwise, if it slips by and I don't get that and don't put that language in, there's no money for the contract. I can't put it in until it goes back to the board. And we try very hard not to do that. But in this case, there is enough money in the budget to do this.
So this was a total budget of 16 million, but that includes furniture, contingency, architect, engineers.
And it also includes some pull-out projects, some work that maintenance is doing outside this project. That's the total referendum project budget. So
Right, so
it includes a lot of things.
we may exceed that just with GMP totals, meaning that you may need another $8 million, $10 million to take care of everything else.
No, well, what I will tell you on the two big GMPs, the PC8 and PC9, we're not going to need that order of magnitude.
Okay.
We have a ballpark range, whether it's a $2 million addition or a $3 million addition on one or the other.
Oh, that's nothing.
But it's not doubling the budget. But it's not enough money to be able to get that through now.
I don't know if well, you probably don't want to, but what I think would be helpful is if you already know that it's going to be between $2 and $4 million extra you're going to need, to actually kind of list that as an estimate of how much extra. So that to me gives me a way more better comfort level at accepting these than just thinking it could double.
I understand where you're coming from, and I can appreciate that. I think Leanne might differ with me then in that she don't like to put down on agenda items information that's incorrect or vague.
Well, we could put down there that we expect it's going to be there. We could say that we're going to increase it as part of the capital plan development process. I think the reason they don't do it, and if they're still negotiating with the contractor right now, I don't want to tell the contractor they have $3 million. I want them to get it down as low as they can get it.
Okay.
So, that's why we could certainly put it in there. If Dave knows the amount and it's locked in, then and I asked him that question. If you have the amount, can we add it? If he's still negotiating and we don't know how much it is, I don't want to give the money away. I want them to do as much as they can, saying it's already over budget, try to fit it in within the budget and keep that increase as low as possible. So I don't want to hamper their negotiation process. If that makes sense.
And it's also a good, it's a good tool for what we do, is not giving hey, don't worry about it, there'll be a blank check at the end of the tunnel, just do whatever you need. No, we have to stay within a defined scope and an anticipated budget, or an anticipated estimate amount.
Okay. All right, are we back to still approving?
Yeah, we have a
PC8
second.
and 9?
Yeah, I think we have a second, and you had asked for
Oh,
comments.
I'd asked for comments. So do any of the comments need to kind of rescind allowing both of these to get voted on? Okay, not hearing any. Go ahead, Dorothy Polis.
Bill Hooker,
Yes.
Stephen Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon.
Are we gonna deal with some of the issues that have been raised in reporting this?
Well, I think with Lou's report, it can be noted because it's already written up here that both of these projects will need additional funds that are over the total budget.
Yeah.
And that is our duty to report to the board so that they know this is not it.
Okay.
Is that enough, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
Ken Lassiter,
Aye.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, we are done consent. On to in-progress FCA work.
Okay. I keep thinking I had already done this presentation.
Well, maybe you did.
I'm going to go through it in lightning speed because what I'll tell you is there's a lot of work going on this summer. It's crazy busy. The folks are doing an incredible job. Okay, go ahead, Dorothy, when you're ready to post that. Okay, we're gonna zip through these. Next, first slide. Yeah, there's the numbers. As you'll see, the amount revenue is ticking up, and my job is to tick up the expended number, and I got to do a better job of that. We are increasing our staffing. We're getting a lot of help from AECOM going forward in order to be able to help us take on more projects because we've got a whole lot of major projects, facility renewals, new construction, but Dorothy over there, she's got a list a country mile long of minor projects that these are projects that impact the schools and really need to get done as well. So we're increasing our staffing to try to do that. Go ahead, Leanne.
I just wanted to mention the 806 million of sales tax revenue, that is through June 2022.
Oh, through June, okay.
And the other numbers for the committed to project and total expended, that's actually through June 22nd. As I mentioned, we're not done with June 30 yet. So you'll probably see another number for June. Just don't be surprised if you saw it with one number this month, then it'll be higher because we've got a lot of bills coming in through June right now.
How can we commit more money to projects than we have?
The committed number is, I believe, it's the amount that's currently has been spent or is encumbered.
Yeah, but
That's
we're
what
only
that number is. More money is being spent, and purchase orders are still being created. So there's still work. That number could come up.
No, I understand that, but we only got 806 million in sales tax revenue.
We have a line of credit that allows us to spend more.
Okay.
And that number for committed through projects is not just the sales tax funded. They're including the projects that are funded with the COPS.
I got it. Okay.
So it includes the 100 million for triple O high school that's funded with debt issues.
Okay.
All right, this next slide, I'm sure the contractors and architects will be looking for this one. You can see we've now taken this report and turned it into a color-coded one so that you can see, I think the blues are the hard bid, invitations to bid, projects that are not being done through our continuing contracts, CMAR contracts and architect contracts. And the reds are those ones we're putting out to the pre-approved contractors and architects. So got plenty of work coming up. It's just going to keep rolling. We've got it.
What kind of percentage of our jobs are you able to put through our continuing contract of 10 contractors, 10 architects?
Well, right now we're just
50%.
Yeah, right now we're just getting out of the door. It's going to be a lot more to the red in the future.
And the red is that group.
The red is the 10 contractors, 10 architects, that kind of thing. Yeah. I'm sorry. Leanne has a comment.
Leanne said that the construction budget is going to be relabeled as the estimated construction cost.
There you go. Okay. Good to go. Okay, next one is just to give you all CORC members an idea that, we got a lot more work coming your way too. So you can see this month we only had the 3 GMPs. Next month we've got 3 facility renewals. And then you can see, remember the phase 2s we were talking about, September and October for Dreyfus and Glade Central. And it's just going to keep ticking up. We've got more work coming in the pike. Next slide. Development activities. You'll see that third bullet down there is the master planning for Belvedere and South Transportation. One of the follow-ups we have is the Belvedere site plan. So you can kind of see, we may update it because what we showed you was the phase 1. We have the ability to expand the Belvedere site to do additional buses in the future. Next slide. Design. Good heavens, poor George Perez is he's busy as all heck. And as is Barbara right here, because every time we turn around, we're putting out a whole new set of design scopes for solicitation. So whether they be through invitation bid or through the continuing contract. Next. Ton of facility renewal work going on, and while we've had some missteps this summer, very few. And I say missteps in that we anticipated that we were going to get more work done in some cases than others. Most of that has been a result of not being able to get deliveries of materials. We've had a number of material. Literally, I got a text just now on something that was supposed to be delivered on Monday, and it's not coming for another week. And, trying to get things done by the end of the summer. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, the end of our summer is August 9th, of course, is the last day of summer. August 10th is the first day of school. But for us, really, July 29th is the end of our construction program. That's the week before, so that the whole week before school starts, actually a week and a half before school starts, we're out of the school. Our contractors are done. That gives the opportunity for all the teachers to come back. And, the teachers come back, they bring their husbands with all the books and do all the decorating in the rooms and whatnot. So we wanted to make sure our contractors are out. So that's our intent, is to get all this stuff done by July 29th. That literally gives us a little over 2 weeks to get going. A couple of the jobs that are impressing me is, and I don't want to call out any one contractor versus another, but I noticed that a lot of work has been gone on at a couple of the schools that Kaufman Lynn has worked on, Olympic Heights and Dwyer. Both of those facility renewals, they're massively improved just in the summertime work that they've done. So kudos to them. And I've got Hatcher working on Murakami Park. For those of you who may actually tune into our YouTube videos that the school district puts out, we have a series called the Burke at Work, where he gets to go out and see how the district staff work and what they do and how they go about doing it. Well, I had the joy of having Mr. Burke come out and join me at Murakami and be a project manager for a day. And he wanted to know why, when we got up on the roof, why he wasn't shoveling rock for replacing the roof, until he got up there at 10 a.m. and realized how hot it was. And yes, it's good to be a project manager sometimes and not pushing the shovel. But that project with Hatcher is moving along well. Keep going. Yeah, there's Olympic Heights. A lot of work going on there. Next slide. And the last one was Dwyer. Okay. Number of pictures. I'll welcome you guys to tune in and take a look at those. Next. Okay, next. All right, our new work, new schools, Triple O High School. That is on time. Everything's going well. I don't want to get into the details. If you have any questions, you're certainly welcome to reach out to me or Angel, because he loves answering questions about the high school. It's all dried in, and obviously you can see a lot of the framings ongoing, and partitions and whatnot. Go ahead and show the pictures. So that right there is on the bottom of your screen is Route 7, and the side street. I can't remember. It's 140, something like that. Let's say Blue Lake Elementary. You think Angel's crazy busy now. He's working on Triple O High School, which doesn't open up until next summer, but Blue Lake opens up in 3 weeks. So we were fortunate enough yesterday to get a little tour with some of the board members and some of the Boca Council folks of the site. It's getting there. Furniture is being delivered. You can see what looks like that. By the way, this picture is a few weeks old, so there's a dramatic change in some of the site. The improvements inside the building, much of the building is complete. Still a lot of finishes that have to be taken care of, but we're on track to be done. Now, granted, I always refer to this is one of those projects he's diving in head first. So we're going to be right up to the finish line, but furniture and books and whatnot are all being loaded. You can see that big great grass area just to the north of well, it's actually to the south of the 2 baseball fields is the big open play area, the sodded open area. Okay, next one. We don't have a name for it yet. 17 PP, our middle school in West Boynton. People want to refer to it Sunset Palms Middle, but it's not been named that yet. Naming process should be starting shortly because I think they just named the principal. Next slide, guidance. We're really early in the slide in the construction and basically doing foundations. Got their panels getting poured. Next. And this is, of course, right next to Sunset Palms Elementary. All right, next couple slides, Delray Full Service. That project is moving along well. We anticipate that this construction will be done right around the end of the year, around December or January. And as you'll see, there are some modular classrooms that are being installed at that location as well, that are supplemental classrooms for the academic programs there. And yes, Ms. Gaines had actually asked earlier on Delray Full Service, are the programs established? Yes and no. Yes, we do have established programs, but where we're at right now is we have spaces, rooms that can be adjusted and modified, or just classrooms that'll allow for different types of programs to be installed in there. The other one where one of my other SPAs, James Farrell, is working on Maluka. Maluka is also another one that's just like Grove Park, is being demolished as we speak. We did but in order to do that, we had to create a holding school for the folks at Maluka. The folks for Grove Park, their holding school is in Lincoln Elementary. So that was already set up and being used previously by Washington. So that we're all set on that one. Maluka Holding School, we brought in a whole lot of portables. It's at Crestwood Middle. It's on the side. You can see on the picture to the right, the dark gray roofs is the actual Crestwood campus. We're using 11 classrooms inside there that are directly adjacent to where we put all the portables. And the bus loop is, of course, the drop off for the kids. And that one we're sweating, but that is Pearl Construction. Again, one of our strong contractors, and we're very comfortable that they have every resource available being put towards it to making sure that school is ready to open, and we're in good shape for it.
Okay, questions by anybody? Okay. Follow-up. We got follow-up. Any questions on what Dorothy sent out for follow-up?
Well, I wanted to make sure that I think in that follow-up, we did say that the Jupiter substation update.
Right.
I'm not sure what were the other ones. Were there any other questions before I get into that? Because I can't see if there's
like we had a hand raised. Sam Shannon.
Sam, yes, sir.
Sam.
Yeah, I was appreciative of getting the bus facility out on Belvedere. The site plan, I thought they did a pretty nice job. Just a thought, there's 2 lights in there, and I'd be curious to see where we are in discussions of getting those lights. I'm not sure the one to the west is all that essential, but certainly the one to the east is. But I was also pleased to see that we're beginning with the electrical buses and the charging. I was just curious, how far can a bus go? I mean, we have like 12 charging stations, but 140 buses. Do they have to be done every day?
Yeah, and then they will be done charged intermittently every day or every couple of days, depending on their routes. I to be honest with you, I'm not a person to answer that question. We are working with Transportation Department to try to identify how many stations will be needed. And keep in mind, what I think I wanted to mention to everybody, this is just a master plan. This is just a conceptual plan based on the needs that the Transportation Department has. Many of you know that we've got a site over at the Royal Palm facility. We're bringing a lot of the buses there over to this location. So we have other uses for that space. And this, of course, as you can see from the sketch, has the ability for expansion. So what we're showing now is a certain number of buses. But again, this is simply just a master plan to make sure that when we go and put this out as an RFP, that all the architects and all the contractors are aware of where we're heading, what kind of cost estimates we're going to have for this.
Joe?
That expansion, I assume, is to the east.
To the east, yes, that is correct.
And it's hard to, just one sort of, I thought it was an interesting thing that there was a garden there by the employees' station. Is that gardening for beauty, or is it for vegetables, or what?
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably know that we make a big effort. We have a garden committee. We really support the schools, help the schools facilitate gardens. So this is certainly something that we would consider making a site on this particular site.
I was going to say, I thought it was terrific. I would just say there's an awful lot of trees planted right around that garden, and lots of times shade and garden stuff. So
this is all conceptual idea.
I know. I just generally on comment.
I was just going to say that the buses get around 125 to 150 miles per charge, and they do have to be charged after every, after the morning run or after the afternoon run.
I figured that.
Yeah, so that it depends on the routes, obviously, and so we're moving, and the technology is changing with them rapidly. So hopefully they'll be able to get more range with as the batteries improve. So that's one of the reasons why we're not buying hundreds of them yet, because we still need.
No, I wouldn't buy all those stations, but it looks like you've got room for more charging stations, and you'll have to go with how many buses you get, obviously.
Right.
We actually have a grant and have partnered with FP&L. There's a grant that's going to come in and fund the extra costs associated with electric bus that's over and above what a diesel bus would cost. And FP&L is paying to run all the cables and to put in the charging stations for those electric buses. So it's a pilot at this point. I mean, we're setting everything up for the future, but we're not buying hundreds of buses right now. It's definitely a pilot.
Leah?
Yes, I guess she kind of answered my question. I guess that's what I was going to ask. And also, are there going to be any plans for additional vendors for the EV charging stations beyond the FPL pilot project?
Well, I believe that's part of the grant. It's coming from a VW settlement managed by the state. And part of the package was that FP&L would provide the charging stations for these buses.
And to provide additional information, that charging partnership with FP&L is for 10 years.
Michael?
Wow, that's a little anti-competitive, but okay.
Well, they're paying for it.
No, I understand that. I understand, yeah.
Free is free.
Michael?
One of the problems that we've seen in communities is that getting the electricity to the property, and as you're working with FP&L, whether they actually have the capacity for that, and if so, who's going to be paying for that part. And it's one thing where you've got someone who's paying for perhaps a new box on the premises and the cables out to the stations, but that's becoming an increasing concern because of the power consumption at surge times that they need to have.
Okay.
That's understood.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Police station now? Yes?
Sure.
So I think we're done with follow-up.
Right. I was going to say, I don't think there's anything on follow-up other than that.
Nope.
Okay. Do you have that file that I emailed you? Yeah. That one. That's the one. Okay. So this is a really quick one. Basically, I'm just going to give you kind of the update. Many of you, okay. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, couldn't see.
You're not seeing that.
There we go.
All right.
It's okay.
Okay, so there are some photos that I've attached here. I'll make sure that we update this, update our CORC agenda and have this included in there. But basically, it's just a handful of photos. You can see the front entrance. We put bollards in the front of the site, protecting the main entrance.
Somebody ramming the doors.
Exactly. But as many of you probably know that you've been around that site, it is completely fenced in now, and there are gates. The construction is just about done. Basically, it's you can see from the photos. You can scroll down to the next one if you want. Open space. For those of you who've been around the site, there is a tractor trailer that is sitting in the parking lot, and that tractor trailer is filled with all the furniture, waiting for us to get a TCO or a CO. And then as soon as that's within the next couple of weeks, we anticipate we'll get our CO. We will then move all the furniture in. And at that time, all the staff from, there's a number of staff from Fulton Holland that will be relocated here, as well as the evidence should be relocated here. As a matter of fact, you even see in that middle picture right there, I've got cardboard taped down to the ground. That's what the contractors use in order to make sure that they don't damage the brand new floor we put in. And I just told them to leave it down there because when we start rolling in hand carts full of evidence, just keep it from getting damaged. So as you can see, it's a nice wide open space. There'll be plenty of opportunities for furniture layouts for those that are going to operate it. And for those of you who know the site, it is, as I said, it is fenced in, gates on both sides. But it will predominantly be locked down as just having school police vehicles and school operations there. It's not going to be open to the public like it used to be when it was a bank.
Did this get a backup generator and impact glass?
Doesn't have impact glass. Does have we have a plug-in for a backup generator.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the infrastructure. We stayed within the budget.
Okay.
We came to you and told you what we were doing. We told you we were going to improve this facility. The vast majority of the improvements you don't really get to see. There's a lot, all new air conditioning, all new lighting, all the new above ceiling infrastructure in order to be able to run this, cameras, card readers, all that stuff. You don't really get to see all that stuff, but that's really where a lot of the money was spent. And we have got these spaces now for modular furniture and desks and operations here.
Did the outside get accordion shutters, or it has no?
It already had them.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
okay.
It already had.
I'm just thinking, hurricane comes along here, it's out of power, and the windows are trashed. Yeah. What good is the building?
No. The building is secured, hurricane secured, and we wanted to make sure. While we would have loved to have spent a couple $100,000 more and put a generator in and blah blah blah, but in this case, we stuck within the budget that we had said we were going to work with, and provided the facility. And in doing so, we were able to put the transfer switch for a plug for a transfer with the transfer switch for it.
Right. Michael.
Thank you. I noticed the bollards at the front, and without asking whether that's going to be part of the specifications for every school facility, I am just going to toss out there for staff consideration as to whether this now creates a standard. If it's for this building, should it not be for all others? And as a practical matter, what is the goal or danger to be protected? And with the open campus design, is there an effective way to deal with a vehicle coming onto the campus? So I'm not going to, again, ask you for, what the security plan is, but that's something that I think you need to think about moving forward.
I would think for a school design, Michael, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. I mean, cars may not even get near the front entrance, but as you can see right here, car can come right up that sidewalk and barrel right through the doors unless the bollards were there. So I don't know if it's going to be a standard design. I think it's a case-by-case.
Most of the schools I'm at, Dreyfus is an exception because they have the steps and all. But even there, they have side entrances. But most of them, they're right next to the parking lots with short curbs. So it
For
is a
security to kind of determine what they need and what they want.
And our new schools are being built more, well, you've seen some of the imagery. It's creating a hard shell around. The buildings themselves become the enclosure. And in fact, where we usually have entry points for students, those, while they might have in the past been just standard chain link fence kind of openings, they are now, in fact, on our new designs, a lot more sturdy. They are block walls and deeply embedded aluminum fence to prevent those kinds of things.
Frank?
Yes. I was not happy with the answer about the generator. If you feel that a full generator is too expensive, I still think that you need to identify some very basic coverage that they should be able to keep during a hurricane or other time, and get a generator of capacity to handle that and to tie in the necessary circuits for that purpose.
We have. This facility has been designed with a transfer switch and a plug-in to bring a portable generator, and the district has plenty of portable generators that we can roll out. So we can bring a full building generator out, plug it into this thing, and run it for days at a time with a belly tank built right into the generator. So it is designed to be able to accommodate that, pull that generator up and set it there. It doesn't stay there forever. And
when you said a plug-in generator, I'm thinking of a little 5,000 watt Home Depot.
I'm trying to oversimplify it. I wanted to say that we stayed within the budget. This was
fine.
Something we would have done a standard generator the way we do at most other facilities. Even this facility, we have generators in the back. But in that particular case, we stayed within the budget. We said we promised and made sure we had the ability to accommodate it.
Okay. Any other questions for this?
I've got one.
Yes,
What's
well,
the
I'm
amount of
sorry,
money
but I
that
think
site for purchase of the building
designing at
and
least one
construction?
generator permanently there
Approximately.
is pretty basic.
Frank, hold on one second.
Happen.
Frank, hold your thought for a second.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm looking for what total cost has been put into that building, from purchase price to construction and everything.
Doggone it. I can't remember exactly what the purchase price was.
Like 2 million?
Yeah, I want to say it's around 2, or was it 1.72 for the actual purchase price, and we spent about $600,000 in the GMP.
I couldn't hear you. Pardon it.
$600,000 in the improvements, just under 600,000.
And the purchase price was 2 million?
Somewhere in that range. I don't. My apologies. I don't remember that number, that exact number.
Frank.
I think that there should be a generator permanently stationed there, because when these blackouts happen, they don't necessarily give you advance notice, and then you have to expect somebody to go and get a generator and bring it there. It's being a little optimistic. And I think this is a key facility in terms of the school being protected. And therefore, I would think about doing that.
Well, we'll certainly take that up with school police going forward if they so deem that necessary. And if it is necessary, again, I got Dorothy sitting over here. We can put a minor project together and get with Leanne and find out if we can fund a permanent generator. But at this time, like I said, we were sticking with what we had, and we have now have this facility in the position to be fully supported. However, I don't know what I can't speak to the manpower of this, what the use is. It's not it's going to store evidence, and there are going to be staffers that work in this building that are associated with collection and storage and safety of that evidence. Maybe officers that bring evidence to it, kind of thing, on a case by case basis. But I don't know exactly the operation of the facility otherwise.
Board members, I want to speed this up because we've got 10 minutes or we have to extend the meeting. I'd rather not do that. Michael?
Thank you. I appreciate, Frank, your comments on this, but I would suggest that before we get the generator and put it there, that we look at our other facilities and determine what the priority is and whether this deserves the priority. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, can't you take and park a generator there if you've got spare generators instead of having to haul one there and it just stays there during hurricane season? I know a bunch of lift stations in my neighborhood. That's what the water company does. They park a portable generator on wheels. It's plugged in. When the power goes out, the generator kicks on.
Understand?
So
that's actually an automatic one, and that's the challenge. We have a transfer switch, but it's not an automatic transfer switch. You have to plug in, turn it off, turn it back on. So whereas the generators we do with automatic transfer switches, power goes off, that automatic transfer switch recognizes and turns the generator on. So
it's still probably the pain of once we have the debris all over the place after a hurricane of trying to wheel a generator there instead of one already being there and somebody has to go there and plug it in.
I agree with you, and I can't say that you're not correct. That for all we know, that there well could be maintenance runs a lot of my the generators, the spare generators, and this may end up being a place where we put a temporary generator there permanently.
Sits there during hurricane season.
But my question goes to priorities as to who needs electricity. We're assuming that this is at the top of the list, and I'm not ready to speak on what that list should be, but
nor am I.
go through this, we need to determine what the priority is. Thank you.
I agree.
Correct. Yeah. I completely agree with you, sir.
Okay. We're going to move along so we can finish on time here. That was follow-up discussion. Anything? Who said something?
I was like Frank.
Frank? No? Okay. Approval of minutes. Anyone with issues on the minutes?
Yes, this is Virginia.
Okay.
First, I want to congratulate whoever did the minutes and notes. I really like the format and they're very, very good. On the next to the last page, I think that's page 4, under 5.00 discussion items, updates. And just an incorrect month put there. Next scheduled meeting, July, an update of the capital budget will be presented at the June meeting. That should say July meeting.
Oh, okay.
And I was also going to question on the very last page, the fact that Mr. Sanchez was going to discuss the issue with the school board about what input we're going to have with security issues. And I know you did mention it earlier, and I just wanted to bring to your attention that it was stated at the last meeting. You were saying it a few meetings back. It was just the last meeting when Joe agreed to look into that.
Okay. And Joe's told us.
Other than that, I'm fine with the minutes being approved as distributed.
Okay. I guess we need a second on that now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Sam? Okay. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Bill Util,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yeah.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Galfan,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Sabrina Ferris.
Yes.
Okay. Anything that someone wants to have reviewed at the next meeting? Will be our standard fare. Somebody got a hand up, Frank. You're muted, Frank. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. You're muted.
Now you got me?
Now we got you.
I'm on the committee for selection of a construction manager for historic Roosevelt. The budget is $7.5 million, and it's got a bonus for small business. I'd like to know what the policy is of the size of a project that it's set aside for small business, since we have a ton of other things that go on that small businesses bid on. But is there some point at which we don't want to discourage the bigger companies from trying to compete on projects that technically I feel are much better off with a larger company that would have a lot more people with a background to deal with any problems that come up?
This is a discussion point for next month that he'd like to get on, or?
Can this be talked about next month, Frank? Put that on to staff to come back with an answer?
I think that would be a very good way to find out and have it at the next meeting, what the policy is, whether the board is aware of the policy, and whether we have comments on it.
Yeah, I think purchasing can come back to us and tell us what the limits are and how they determine where an SBE bonus point gets put into, and what the rationale is. Now, that'll be a good discussion point.
I would also recommend that you also have the Office of Diversity and Business Practices present there.
That's exactly why I wanted to make sure we did this next month, potentially. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take care of that. Anything else by anyone?
Yes, this is Virginia, coming to you from Vancouver, Canada. It's gorgeous up here, 70 degrees during the day, down in the 60s and 50s to sleep at night.
Rub
I feel
it
sorry
in.
for all of you down there, but it's gorgeous up here.
We're getting low 90s every day, sweating a lot.
But Virginia, what time is it right?
Yeah.
I know. That's why I was a little late getting on. It's really early up here.
You can't have it both. Okay, we are adjourned, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Do you have to plug it in?